everyone, and welcome back to Knot Weave Stitch. My name is Gisela, and in this week's episode we're going to look at my top 5 recommendations for children's fibre crafts to keep them busy this summer. I'm sorry if you can hear the dog today. He is currently in the room with me, panting away. So if you can hear that in the background, just ignore it. He's just chilling out right next to me. But today is quite a nice summery one to start thinking about crafts, just to keep children busy and to teach them some nice different fibre crafts to do. So my first recommendation is recycled weaving. And you can basically use anything around your house that you could make into a loom. So one of the main things that you can use is recycled cardboard. So if you have any empty delivery boxes, what you can do with them is basically cut them up into pretty much any shape you would like. You can make them into just the normal rectangular looms. You could cut them into circles. You can even make them into different shapes. So you could make them into like a cloud, or potentially a rainbow or something like that to start creating your loom. And within these shapes, you then would cut slits all around the edges, and you would use that to weave in any of your materials. And again, because we're talking about kind of recycled weaving here, this is a great opportunity to use up any scraps you may have lying around. So any old yarns, ribbon, fabric. You can even cut up any old clothes, like an old t-shirt, and just cut that into different little strips, and the children can weave that into their piece as well. So it's a really great way to use up any leftover bits and pieces that you have lying around. And children can also even weave onto cups. So you might have paper cups lying around spare from a party, or styrofoam cups or something like that. And you can basically do the same sort of principle. So you can cut slits all the way down the cup, and then you would use your material, so let's say a yarn, and start weaving it in and out of the slits. And as you weave, you can start building it back up into a cup shape again. And it makes a really fantastic little container, so they can put their pens and pencils in it, or any little items they have lying around, they can pop in there as well. So the recycled weaving is a really, really good way to use up anything lying around. It's quite a fun thing to do, and it's not too tricky as well. Going on from this, my second recommendation is nature loom weaving. So this is a really, really great way to get the children outside this summer, and it's a good way to basically get them interacting with nature. So what you can do is you can get the children to go and find sticks, and all you'll need is a bit of string or twine, and just wrap those twigs or sticks together. All you'll need is about 4 sticks there, and wrap them securely together in like a rectangle shape. You could do other shapes, but normally a rectangular loom is the kind of basic one. So you would get your loom stick base, and you'd have your string, and then you'd wrap your string up and down from your stick loom to have the kind of warp backing to it, so that they can then go and go basically on a scavenger hunt and find different grasses that you can weave in and out. Might be quite nice to get some thicker grasses as well as thin ones. You can get flowers with longer stems to be able to weave them in and out of these strings, and even some longer leaves as well. So it's a great way to kind of like a little scavenger hunt as well, and they can learn about different plants as they find them and weave it into their piece. So that's a great way to incorporate it to going outside. You could even potentially do it on a walk as well. Create a little loom, take it on a walk there, and as you go along you can find different grasses or flowers to pop into the weave. My third recommendation is wet felting. Now you may have heard of needle felting before, but wet felting doesn't really use any needles. It's just basically wool, so I would recommend roving wool because you can easily access that, soap and water. And it's basically the mixture and friction of kind of rubbing the wool in with soap and water, and that begins to mesh the fibres together. So this can be a really, really nice hands-on activity for children to do. So they can make really simple structures and build up from there. So one of the most simple things that they can do is make like little wet felted balls. And with that, very simply, just getting some roving wool and popping that into some soapy water and then using their hands to roll it up in a ball. And you can start making a whole load of these, and they could then go on to create garlands or necklaces and bracelets. And it's even a really nice thing to combine kind of a little bit of sewing into it, so they can get a plastic needle and thread the wet felted roving wool balls onto a bit of twine or string using a plastic needle. Obviously, as a parent, you can help them as well with a proper needle, but if they'd like to do it, you can always get a plastic needle instead, and that can make a really nice garland or necklace, like I said. So that one's quite fun, quite tactile to do with their hands. My fourth recommendation is macrame, and children can make really simple key rings or little friendship bracelets out of them. Now, if they struggle with finer materials, so if maybe threads or jewellery cord is just too small, you can work with chunkier materials. So you can work with a macrame cord or a bit of string there instead, and you can very simply make a keyring. So just getting a keyring itself and doing a couple of knots there, which can be quite nice. Or you can make a little friendship bracelet as well. So they'll be learning how to do some basic macrame knots as well. So that one's quite a nice one, quite tactile with the hands. So it's learning different knots and making different items depending on what they want to do. So some of the knots that I'd probably recommend looking at to do that is the lark's head knot. The half square knot is great for a lovely spiral effect. The full square knot, although that might be a little bit more difficult, but once they learn the half square knot, they might be able to do the full square knot. And then something like a gathering knot if they want to finish off their piece, especially for a keyring. Of course, with these things, they can also add beads into it. So if they'd like to add in any beads or potentially charms if they're doing a bracelet as well, that might be a nice fun activity to add a few little extra accessories to their keychains or their bracelets. My last recommendation is slightly more on the textile side of things, but it's something perfect for the summer, especially on a nice warm day. Tie-dyeing is a really fun activity to do. So with tie-dyeing, children can dye t-shirts, aprons, bags, socks, whatever it may be. And I recommend 100% cotton. I find that it works better, but they can really pick whatever they would like to do a bit of tie-dye. And with tie-dye, you can work with different dyes. Obviously, you can work with fabric dye that you can get in shops, but you can also work with natural dyes if you'd prefer. So you could use things like onion skins, turmeric, berries to give a more natural dye. With tie-dye, children can learn different techniques. So it's very much all in the placement of the bands, the elastic bands or twine string, whatever you are using, and you can create different patterns literally wherever you are putting your bands or your twine there. So it's quite a nice thing to do. So you could make stripes out of it. I've even done things like a bullseye effect. So it's quite nice to have a play around, pop the elastic bands or the twine in different places and see what happens. And then obviously this is a perfect time of year where they can dry outside there. You're not having to worry about it drying inside. So it's a perfect time of year to have a little go at tie-dye. Tie-dye can also be a really great one to do so that children can learn about the colour wheel, what colours go well together and what colours don't. So when they are using the different dyes, particularly fabric dye, they can learn mixing colours, what happens when colours get mixed up, what do they end up making, which ones go together really nicely and which ones don't. But there are so many different fibre crafts that children could do over the summer. This is just 5 of a lot of them there. And it really depends also on the craft that they're interested in. So they might actually prefer to do a bit of knitting, crochet, sewing. So there's plenty of different things to potentially look at. But if you did want to have a go at a different fibre craft or a different idea, I'd recommend maybe having a look at something like Pinterest, or on Hobbycraft's website they have a little idea section, or just have a little Google and there's plenty of different fibre craft ideas for children. It's a really nice one to keep them busy over the summer. So we've come to the end of this week's episode. In next week's episode, we're going to be looking at summer fibre crafts for adults, particularly if you've got any outdoor spaces. I'll be giving perfect ideas for outdoor areas or crafts that you can do in nice sunny weather. If you can, please subscribe to my podcast. I would be so grateful. Additionally, I have a Patreon with different tiered memberships, so please do consider joining the Knotweave Stitch community, as it really helps keep the podcast alive. I also have an accompanying podcast blog on my website, which is www.gieslernaarten.com, which follows each episode, so feel free to take a little look at that. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a lovely summer, and I will see you in the next one.